The story changes hourly. It's why the 11th hour is here every night.
More Americans watch NBC News than any other news organization in the world.
Listen up.
Welcome back. We are continuing to monitor the situation on the London Bridge, which has now been completely evacuated. We know one man has been detained, several people injured. We will keep you up on that situation as we get more information. Back here at home, we're talking about faith. A claim from two of President Trump's prominent evangelical supporters is making very big waves. Talking about critics of the president, radio host Eric Metaxas and Franklin Graham, who heads the Billy Graham Evangelical Association, had this pretty important exchange.
What do you think of what is happening now? I mean, it's a very bizarre situation to be living in a country where some people seem to exist to undermine the president of the United States. It's just a bizarre time for most Americans.
Well, I believe it's almost a demonic power that is trying.
I would disagree. It's not almost demonic.
No,
I mean, you know, and I know that at the heart it's a spiritual battle.
Joining me now to discuss, Peter Wehner, former advisor to President George W. Bush and senior fellow at the Ethics and Public Policy Center. Back with us, Jim Kessler and Brendan Buck. Peter, welcome. They didn't talk about policy or politics. These are two very influential people in the evangelical community talking about demonic powers.
Yeah, I think the reason that they don't really go into policy is because that's a weaker ground. This is known as a conversation stopper to say that your critics are being driven by demonic powers. It's a pernicious charge. It's theologically very damaging and dangerous. It's an effort to subordinate politics, or faith actually, to politics. That is, politics becomes the prism through which people view faith, and it's harmful. It's harmful to our politics because if you say that people are being driven by demonic powers, by satanic forces, then you can't compromise with them. They're not fellow citizens. They're more even than enemies of the state. But I think it's also a terrible witness for Christianity. People look at this and they say, this is nuts. This is a kind of moral freak show. So I think it's bad on all sorts of levels, but it is important in this regard. It's a window into a particular mindset that informs a lot, not all, but a lot of white evangelical supporters of Trump.
But can't go with policy? Can't they simply say, we love this president because we got two Supreme Court justices, we think we might get a third, and a record number of federal judges?
Yeah, look, that's a serious argument. But I think for a person like Franklin Graham, that is a default position for him. He, and I think from what Metaxas says, that they really believe that the people who are opposing Donald Trump, the critics of him, are being driven by sort of these satanic forces. And I think that, as I said, I think their argument is weak. And it's one of the reasons that people like Metaxas and Graham caricature the critics of Trump. And in this particular interview, Metaxas presented the opposition to Trump as if it's theologically based. Nobody cares whether, Donald Trump believes in infant baptism or adult baptism. The criticism by people who are Christian and non-Christian against Trump is that he's a man who is utterly corrupt, and that corruption has radiating effects, a blast radius, and is harming the country. But that is an argument that they tend not to want to make. So when you can't defend your argument, you caricature the arguments to the other side.
Blame it on the devil.
Yeah, to me, this is just another example of the grifting that's taken place in this administration. I think what these guys are doing is what's good for business for them, and their supporters support the president, and so they're lining up with them. That's what this is to me.
The fact of the matter is, even Billy Graham Sr. made mention that this country was evolving off into poltergeist type atmosphere, to the point that it actually is a form of an abomination, that this country has turned its back on the true, righteous, holy God. Now, you can make up any God that you want. You can make up a neon God. You can start bowing and worshiping peacocks and crystals and owls if that's what you choose. But that's not the real, true, righteous God. pertaining to the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, and the God of other major prophets throughout the Bible, including the Lord Jesus Christ. So basically what has occurred here is an abomination pertaining to how that not just the political society, but the Christian society has compromised for the generic form of religion versus the real deal. And that's what's got us in the trouble that we're in right now, towards seeing all these extreme weather patterns and seeing these massive shootings and school shootings and people busting out windows in 13-story high rises and taking an assault rifle and shooting into the audience and killing about 50 or 60 people, or going into a nightclub down in Orlando and killing about 50 or 60 people, or going into a church down in South Carolina and killing 12 or 13 or 14, 15 people. We have reached that pivotal moment here in America, and not just America, but throughout societies, engaging the whole planet, to the point that it has become a supernatural force of abomination. Abomination. And that's the very thing that Jesus taught. He said, when you shall see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, to know, to realize, to understand that you are at the doors, that something is fixing to occur on the count of this type of toxic abomination that has invaded our schools, that has invaded our politics, that has invaded our businesses, that has invaded our entertainment world, that has invaded our lives. That when you shall see, in other words, you're going to be able to see it, you're going to feel it, you're going to know it, to know that you are at the end. The end of what? The end of the world as we know it. Now, does that mean the end of the actual world? No. Because if you read the rest of the book in Revelations, it talks about the 1,000-year millennium. It talks about the 7-year tribulation period. And of course, if you haven't never studied the Bible and know anything about the Bible, you're going to swing at this and miss it by 3 foot, because you're not going to understand the very things that I'm talking about. But people has taken the distractions of life in taking something that is bad and trying to manipulate it into good, and something that used to be called good and trying to manipulate it into being bad. That is an abomination.
Once upon a time, the evangelical movement led the abolitionist movement in this country, and there's still a lot of really great evangelical leaders in America, and it's time on the 50th anniversary of the silent majority speech of Nixon for them to raise their voice and repudiate this.
What do Democrats do about this? What are 2020 contenders?
I think Ibaka. I actually think Pete Buttigieg is probably the best, because he is the one who can speak about faith, I think, most fluently. But I think if I were a Democrat, I would use this to illustrate what is happening to the Trump supporters, that they're just kind of going outside the boundaries and parameters of normal politics. And just to echo what Jim said, I do think it's important at this point for people who have a different view, who are evangelicals, to speak up, because people like Graham and Metaxas are writing the script, the narrative, and people have to give an alternative narrative. Otherwise, people think this is what all evangelicals believe. They don't.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. A really important conversation. We have to take you back now to another important conversation. This incident developing in London. Jim Kavanagh, former special agent in charge for the ATF, now an MSNBC contributor. Jim, I know we have very limited information, but London Bridge, one of the most popular tourist destinations at a time when many people are traveling in London. What do you make of what we learned so far? One man detained, several people injured.
Right. It looks like the police, Steph, have shot a suspect right in the middle of London Bridge. He's laying down right on the street from some of the photos I've been able to look at, with the Metropolitan London Police surrounding him. It started at a residence, apparently, in a stabbing, and then the person fled. Metropolitan Police, of course, that's heavy with police patrols there all the time because of past incidents that you've covered, and terrorist incidents on the bridge and at Parliament and all around that central London area. And they pursued apparently a suspect and shot him down in the middle of the bridge. So some of the photographs coming out from there, you can see there's a lorry, a truck they call a lorry there, kind of moved sideways, and a suspect down, police around that area. So it looks like they might have stopped what was happening, but we don't know yet, Steph, what started the whole thing. Is it a domestic dispute? We don't know. It started maybe at a residence, so we're not sure.
Well, let's see if we know more. Aaron McLaughlin, our reporter on the scene, joins us again by phone. Aaron, give us an update of exactly what you know.
Hey, Stephanie. Well, at the moment, I'm walking towards London Bridge. The streets surrounding the bridge have been cordoned off. They are allowing foot traffic, though, to approach the bridge, not cross the bridge. At the moment, I've seen a number of emergency vehicles, police vans, also cars driving toward the bridge area, most likely to set up a police cordon as the investigation continues. Social media video captured by eyewitnesses on board a bus that was on the bridge at the time of the incident shows a number of individuals on the ground, what appears to be a scuffle, and then you hear a police shot fired. Seems to have come from the police. You see one passerby seemingly walk off with the suspect's knife. Now, we're still waiting for more details from the Metropolitan Police. What we do know is that they were called to the scene at 1:58 p.m. To a stabbing near London Bridge. One man has been detained and a number of people injured.
All right, we're going to continue this coverage. Jim Kavanaugh, Aaron McLaughlin. That wraps up this hour for me. I'm Stephanie Ruhle. I'll see you again at 1 p.m. I'm going to send you now to my friend and colleague, Chris Jansing in New York. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning. I am Chris Jansing at MSNBC headquarters in New York. So my thanks to Stephanie Ruhle. I want to get you right back to that breaking news out of London, where
once more, we're dealing with the times as the Bible talks about in Revelations, in it expressing to the churches that in the last days Satan will rise up in great wrath because he realizes and he has identified the fact that his days are shortening. In other words, this challenge that he decided to challenge the kingdom pertaining to good versus bad, bad versus good, he's lost that competition. And because he knows that he's lost that competition, that his own identity, along with the third of the angels that followed with him that are no longer considered angels, but now are considered demons, that their Achilles heel is right around the corner to the point of them becoming doomed. Absolutely doomed. And whenever I say doomed, I don't mean that God is going to put them asleep to where it was as if that they never existed. No, no, no. God is going to put them in a very, very special place. And this special place, according to the Bible, is the very pit of hell, where the worm dieth not, where there'll be endless pain and suffering, day and night, night and day, for the rest of eternity, which eternity does not never end. Because they know that they have lost this championship that they challenged God in thousands of years ago, whenever God first created Adam and Eve. Now they're lashing out towards seeing major events, not only like this, which this event here is bad enough, but at least it ain't somebody that's taken a bomb and tried to destroy 150, 200, maybe 300 people with a suicide vest on. But we're living in days right now that the abomination, the spirit of the abomination, has literally taken over this planet. And we're seeing that again and again and again right here in America towards all the events that has occurred just within the past 7 or 8, 9, 10 years. I guess since about 2005, 2006, it has really escalated to the point of being able to literally feel the spiritual oppressionness that now has fallen upon to societies in such a way that there's really no way that you can deny it, that this is evil, that this is horrible, this is of Satan, this is of the evildoer.
There's a lot of armed police in the Metropolitan Police near the tourist sites.
Yeah, so obviously they've already secured the scene, right? Because as you say, there's a presence there anyway. It's a heavily traversed area. But in terms of finding out what this is, and always in the early minutes when something like this happens, you know, people don't know if it's anything on one hand from a domestic or somebody who has mental health issues, all the way up to terrorism. What are they doing right now, Jim, to figure that out?
Yeah, they're going here. Here's the simple thing. You know, we're in high tech world, but the simple thing, it's old, police work. It's shoe leather on the pavement. They go right to the assailant, and we take out his wallet, and we see who he is. What's his ID? And there's his driver's license, and start working that back as quick as you can back to his residence, his family, his neighbors, his associates, his police record, and that's all spun up right now. Metropolitan London detectives, are doing that at Scotland Yard. And like Clint talked about, their terrorist teams are doing that. They're looking at it, all of their units. Who is this guy? Is this just a domestic fight? And then also the witnesses. The witnesses are key. What was happening? Was it a fight between two men? Was it something over some local dispute? Was he yelling things that some terrorist might yell, depending on what their terrorist affiliation may be? Hate-affiliated speech or claiming some other...
Last night, I'm going to go ahead and spill the beans on Wally World pertaining to me being in Walmart last night down in Dyersburg. I probably shouldn't have been out last night because it was rainy, dreary. The winds was fairly high at times, and it was just a dreary, dangerous night to be out last night. I don't know how many people was out last night on Thanksgiving night, but it was not the most pleasurable night to be out on. But anyways, I was down at Dyersburg on Thanksgiving night at 6 o'clock, whenever they basically open up towards their Thanksgiving Black Friday affairs. And it first started out okay, because this makes about the third or fourth Walmart holiday spree, Black Friday spree that I've been involved in. And within a matter of 15, 20 minutes, a fight broke out. And then probably about 35, 45 minutes later, another fight broke out. And I think before I left there was 3 incidences. Now, I don't know if it was hardcore fist fighting, knuckle-bearing fights right down to the blood core, or if it was just a major confrontation towards 2 people trying to grab the same object at the same time and them having a confrontation. But there was 3 deals that happened last night in one Walmart in one area down in Dyersburg. Now, how many Walmarts is all over America? Probably right at 1 million, 500,000, I don't know. I don't know what the statistics are. I'm sure it's several 100,000 anyways. Because of bad press, bad media, they want to be sure and keep security police there, extra security police that they're paying for, to try to hold down any major confrontation that may happen in the event of a calamity that could happen in one of their stores. Any of their stores. Any of their stores. But the point that I'm trying to make is the atmosphere, when that immediately happens, gets people's attention to the point that their eyes open up real big. And it's almost like being at a Super Bowl football game, or they're in a boxing match. They automatically get attracted to that fight, to that incident, to that argument, to that event that's going on. And I don't know if it's just the human reaction to a major incident that happens like that, but you can only imagine, out of the hundreds and thousands of Walmarts all over the world, how many other Walmarts had incidences similar or even worse than what happened last night during the time that I was down in Dyersburg. I'm sure some of those incidences probably was knockdown drag-outs on all out and out white fist fight pertaining to somebody not seeing eye to eye and couldn't conduct themselves in a orderly, professional way out into the eyes of the general public. I'm sure. But I'm also sure of this, because of the power that Walmart has. Whatever incident that did occur, as long as it wasn't something major like a mass shooting of some sort, they'll probably keep it under wraps, and me and you will probably never know about it unless we was at that particular Walmart last night that actually observed and heard an incident occur. That's the power of the media. That's the power of people that's got the big pockets that can shun or hush reality off into something that they want to fumigate in trying to act like that hadn't a cotton picking thing went wrong in any of our stores, and we're thriving and going and blowing, and if anybody needs anything, please come to Walmart, and we're coming near a neighborhood near you. That's always been their motto. Which, if I owned Walmart, I guess I would want to kind of keep things under wraps too. Same thing goes on in your colleges, and the same thing goes on in other institutions throughout this country. That's part of the fake news that Donald Trump talks about a lot of times. And it not only goes on an international level, but it also goes on a local level towards a certain person that gets caught doing something that they're not supposed to be doing. They try to cover it up. They try to put it under wraps. They try to be discreet about that particular person that now has to go in front of a panel or in front of a juror and be reprimanded by law enforcement. Getting back to my original concept, my original ideal, which is this. The American people have been bamboozled in thinking that any aftermarket or generic product is just as good as the genuine. Regardless whether it's drugs coming over the drug counter from the pharmaceutical communities, or it's coming from the parts pertaining to genuine General Motors, genuine Ford, genuine Chrysler, genuine Toyota, genuine Honda, genuine this, genuine that. They have been bamboozled in not only thinking that about drug cost and parts and other types of aftermarket generic forms, just like Sweet and Low. Sweet and Low is supposed to be a substitute for sugar, but now they've found out that Sweet and Low actually hurts you just as bad, if not worse than sugar. But America, I can't speak for the whole world, but I can speak for America, have been bought into this theory of not only towards drug cost and parts cost, but they have been bought into this same theory pertaining to religion. Well, as long as we can get it for 50% off, as long as I can get 50% of the real thing, I'll be satisfied in that. I'm good to go with that. As long as I can get half of what the original formula was, pertaining to God, pertaining to the teachings of Christ, pertaining to the Holy Spirit, I'll be all right with that. Well, you know, that may work good in theory pertaining to sales. It may work good in theory pertaining to drug cost. It may work good in theory pertaining to genuine parts sometimes. Sometimes. But it will never work in the essence of your relationship with God, towards who you are and what you are, towards your everyday today walk with God, working through the Holy Spirit in the teachings of Christ, if you are not fully, not 50% devoted, but 100% devoted. Do you hear what I'm saying, folks? I want you to catch this, okay? Because it is crucial. This says 50% off. And anytime we see that, it's an automatic go get it, boy. It's a break. It's a discount. It's a deal. It's a deal. It's a smoking deal. On everyday usage of products, sometimes this is a really good thing. Not all the time, but sometimes. And I'm going to use this equation or this analogy towards what I'm talking about. The car that I'm driving right now is a Honda Accord. Somebody at 155,000 miles decided to put some struts on that car. Rather than them go to Honda and get Honda struts and put on the front of that car, they went and got aftermarket parts. Today, less than 20,000 miles, it's got a bad rattle on both struts. The reason why is because the shock is too long for the car, and if the rubber is not fully engaged, it gives a rattling effect whenever you hit a bump. That ain't going to hurt nothing pertaining to the car itself, but it's just aggravating towards hearing that rattling sound. So, not all the time, your aftermarket parts, regardless whether you get them at AutoZone or wherever, is a good thing. Because if somebody would have put the genuine parts on that vehicle, I wouldn't have to be hearing that chattering sound from time to time whenever I hit a certain bump in a certain way. Just so happens I'm knowledgeable on cars and I know how to fix it without it being too much cost involved. But you can't fix your soul. You can't go in and repair 50% of your heart or 50% of your mind or 50% of your spirit whenever you're looking at reality pertaining to God and your well-being pertaining to your relationship with your eternal salvation. If somebody has told you that, trying to look for a deal or a bargain, they have told you inaccurately. So in ending of this particular message today, the day after Thanksgiving, which is Black Friday. The toxicity of the hypocrisy of the Antichrist spirit has literally inundated this country and the majority of the world. And the only way to drive that out is to replace that with the real deal. The only way to see people as well as the weather become back normal again is that the good has to outweigh the bad versus the bad outweighing the good. And if we as a society, regardless whether we're here in America or over in Timbuktu, want to see things straighten themselves out to the point that we see peace and utopia and prosperity for all, we are going to have to take the initiative towards doing the right thing for the right purpose and not be bamboozled in thinking that we can only apply half of our lives and still get the bang for the buck. Because whenever you're talking about your spiritual soul, it does not work that way. Thanks again. Good luck to all of us in every perspective. And I do hope that everybody has a good time throughout these holidays that can be good for some, but can be absolutely horrifying for others. Like I said, the terror that has fallen upon to this planet goes beyond anything like I have ever imagined or ever seen at soon to be at the age of 59 years old. Good luck to all of us. And shalom. And always remain vigilant towards your environment, towards where you're at, the lighting, whether or not you're parking your vehicle in an alleyway or you're parking your vehicle where there's a lot of light. Always hide the items in your car to where they're not exposed to the general thief, the crook out there that's wanting to get a quick dollar. Watch your purses that you hold in your hands. Remain vigilant at all times, because we live in a very, very toxic, perilous society right now like we've never, ever had to experience before. Happy holidays. Sorry about the phone turning over. Good luck to all of us.